Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are here today to talk about Bleach. I would say Tite Kubo's finest work, but let's skip on that this week. So, Bleach chapter 678 review. If you've not seen the live reaction, there'll be a link in the box below for you guys to view the live reaction. Now, let's talk about Bleach. Let's talk about this chapter, because after some thought, I can see that there are, I was automatically conflicted when it came to this chapter, because obviously what Juha did was pretty insane, and I can see where Tite Kubo was going with this chapter. However, I mean, in more ways than I can even count, this chapter is massively trollish. So there are positives and there are negatives, and I can see what Kubo's trying to do. Let's get to the pacing. The chapter does start off where it is like the previous chapter, at the end of that chapter, and it's the beginning of this chapter, but it's remodded. And it was actually done, I think, fairly okay, because you do have like flashback scenes of like the times he despaired the greatest, and then when his mother died, and then he goes Bankai, then you see the Bankai, then Bankai gets cut, it gets just decimated in an instant, then Yhwach goes on like full assault mode, like no time wasted, you're my bitch now, then he talks about the true powers of the Almighty, and that's it. So, pacing overall was relatively fine. It's standard Bleach, so it's not really a big deal there. Now, when it comes to characterization, we get to see Ichigo's new Bankai. I think it looks kind of cool. I mean, I was hoping to see like him snap off the top part of the Bankai, as you know, like the chain, use it as like a whip of some kind. But that was clearly not going to happen in this chapter. Fuck no. No. And then we have Juha himself, and Mr. Blech, well, his powers are pretty broken, and I quote, "The Almighty is not the power to see into the future, it is the power to alter the future." Whoa. Now, how he does so specifically, I'll try and analyze that relatively soon. But the fact of the matter here is that he can alter the future, therefore he can get the jump on Ichigo in various ways. When it comes to breaking his Bankai, when it comes to teleporting behind him, and honestly, it's not really teleportation, it's something else entirely. When it comes to damage that Ichigo suffers, that kind of stuff. So Juha at this point in time is looking insurmountable in every way, shape, and form. And that's really when it comes to characterization. Just Ichigo's new Bankai and like the design and like the look of it, which you can't really go any further with that because once again, I mean, well, you could say, okay, so it's a combination of both his Quincy powers and his Shinigami powers because he has to acquire both swords to create the Bankai, which is pretty cool. But again, what that leads to ultimately, we have no fucking idea as of yet because you are decimated. Now we get to the story progression, and this ties almost verbatim to the characterization, where in which at the beginning you have Ichigo utilize his Bankai gets shattered, we don't see anything from his Bankai, Juha proceeds to decimate Ichigo, and then that's really it. So from those core standpoints, that's the review. But let me talk about, is this actually a good chapter or a bad chapter? Now, I can see what Kubo was trying to do here. He was clearly trying to subvert our expectations by having Juha destroy the Bankai. And odds are is that we're going to see his Bankai at a later point in time. It could be relatively soon, or it could be sometime in like the future, who knows. But we're going to see his Bankai at some point, and we're going to see what it can do at some point, but not at this point in time. So that's like the frustrating part, honest to God. Where I can see that Kubo, he tried to do something that you wouldn't really see in most, well, no, I can't really say in most, because, I mean, Togashi does it, like, once in a while, and, I mean, when he does it, it's, like, pretty intense, but he was trying to subvert our expectations, you know, like, okay, like, a good example of this would be in, like, Game of Thrones. Oh, wait, hold on, that could be a spoiler, shit, ooh, crap, yeah, that could be a spoiler, so let me not do anything with that. But it was like 2 seasons ago. But even still, that still could be a spoiler. So I'm going to avoid that. But basically, the fandom expected Ichigo to release his Bankai, do some crazy techniques, and then Juha try and fight the techniques and so on and so forth. And what I thought was going to be the case was that ultimately, Ichigo's Bankai would still not be enough to take on Juha. Ultimately, because Juha is that powerful. However, here's where things get like really weird. Because we understood that there was more to Juha's powers than he let on via Hash Vault. And in like the previous chapter, it was explained that Yhwach, he can see like the individual grains of sand. Therefore, he can see every possible future outcome that could arise from that point in time for that individual. Okay, we understood that. However, there was an even greater layer to that. I was like, really? So you're telling me that the limits to his power were not just simply seeing every possible future outcome? Because ultimately, according to him, and I quote once again, the Almighty is not the power to see the future, even though in the previous chapters, he clearly alluded to him being able to see every possible future outcome. Hence the individual grains of sand, Mr. Blech, Tate Cubes. But no, apparently Cubes says, no. It's actually the power to alter the future. So via the power to alter the future, apparently you can automatically see every possible future outcome. It's like a byproduct of the power to alter the future. Dude, like it's, holy shit, man. So let me get to that for a few seconds before I go back to Ichigo and whatnot. When it comes to the powers and how his powers work, I have several assumptions as to how that works. And I know some folks have their own thoughts on that as well. But here is what I ultimately think it is. What he is doing is, to a certain extent, future reality warping. And what I mean here is Yhwach exists at a present point in time. So his body, his consciousness resides always in the present, like everybody else does. However, he can alter the future, thereby see every possible future outcome. So when it came to the traps, the reason why the traps were set up the way they were wasn't necessarily because he himself put them there in the future, but more so he altered the future reality to where those traps now existed there. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's not like he went to the future, he snapped it in the future, then he came back to the past, and then voila, it's done. It was more so he altered future reality and the traps were already there. He altered future reality and the sword was already broken. Like, that's the way I see it. I mean, it could be the case where in fact he is going into the future, whichever possible outcome of that future is, and then he's performing the action in the future, so then when the present flows, that's when the incident happens. That's when Ichigo realizes that he's wounded or the Bankai broke. But we're not too sure because, and it's even said in a manga stream translator note, that this is purposely vague. Kubo made it intentionally vague. And he did so because, ultimately speaking, I think what Kubo wants us to believe at this point in time is that shit will just happen simply because Yhwach can alter the future, without giving us a core explanation, without giving us like nitty-gritty details. So that's what's really worrying me right now when it comes to Yhwach's powers. In order to have the reader truly understand what's going on here, you have to explain the core functionalities of those powers. But when you make it that vague, when you really make it that vague, like I broke it in the future, and you're not gonna give us like how that actually works from Yhwach's perspective, then, I mean, again, I could be jumping the gun here. Maybe he will tell us in the future. But because he made it purposely vague in this chapter, I have to wonder, is Kubo going to really tell us the intricacies of Yhwach's powers? So ultimately speaking, when it comes to Yhwach's powers, it is simply put, Yhwach, he is so powerful to where he can affect the future by which he's affecting the present. It really is that simple. But again, the intricacies I really want to find out. Moving on to the actual incident of him destroying Ichigo's Bankai. Understand that even though I find it very trollish, and I'll explain why I find it trollish though, but even though I find it very trollish, it does make perfect sense within the realm of Yhwach's powers. Yhwach is a Nai god, and it makes perfect sense for a Nai god to be able to spank any person that is not on the same tier as him. So maybe it'll be the case where, this is gonna get weird now. Maybe it'll be the case where beings on a higher dimension, like Aizen-esque beings, can tangle with the Nai god Yhwach because they are on a higher plane of existence. That's all quotes right there, pure air quotes. Because I mean, even that boils down to just the amount of power you have, ultimately speaking. But once again, when it comes to Yhwach himself, it makes sense. It does make sense for Yhwach to absolutely crush Ichigo in any form because Yhwach is that powerful. That's not my problem. My problem here is that Kubo, yes, he did try and subvert our expectations, and he did. He destroyed the Bankai, so the folks that want to see his Bankai and what would it do and whatnot, they're like, what? What the fuck? ¿Qué pasa? What is this noise? But at the same time, I was talking to a few friends of mine about this, and one of my friends, he was like, but I didn't care. Like, it was more or less like, if you had expectations for Ichigo's Bankai, you saw it one way. But if you didn't, then you saw it another way. And of course, there is a middle ground between that. When it comes to like the polar opposite sides, I expected something from Ichigo's Bankai. I honest to God did. Because ultimately speaking, you can see how Kubo was leading up to it. Not just from the previous chapter. Ever since Ichigo got his Bankai decimated by Hashvald, there's been massive buildup for Ichigo's new powers and ultimately his new Bankai. Understand that. It's not just from the previous chapter or 2 chapters ago where expectations for Ichigo's Bankai were high, but it was when Hashvald cuts Ichigo's Bankai, Ichigo has to then go to all these locations to regain his Bankai. He spends his time with his father to learn about his true past. He's finally able to make the Asauchi submit. Then he attains a new Zanpakuto. He goes into further training with the Royal Court Guard Squad. Then Ichigo hypes him up like he's truly matured. He's gained new power through that. Then he goes into combat finally, and you have all of this build-up for 100+ chapters when it comes to Ichigo and his powers and ultimately his Bankai. And then out comes Juha, like, surprise, motherfucker. And then that's it. Done. You're gonna have to wait even longer now. Congratulations. It's trollish in that sense. It's like, we waited all this time. It's been like, what, like 2.5, 3 years now, bro? And still, when he finally does go Bankai, I mean, you know what? The comparison in this case would be something akin to seeing Grimmjow's arm, and you know Grimmjow is there. You know Grimmjow exists, and we don't see Grimmjow until like 2 years, 3 years down the line. But in this case, it's worse, because as far as I understand, when your Zanpakuto is damaged that greatly, when you're in Bankai form, then your Bankai, your Zanpakuto, will never regain its initial power. This has existed for a while now in Bleach, though there is an exception to the rule, and that apparently is like Royal Court Guard Squad training, where once Renji and once Byakuya went through that training, their Bankais became exponentially stronger, where Byakuya has mastered his Bankai. He's retrained when it comes to all the forms of his Bankai, and Renji just got a new one in general. He found out the real name of Zabimaru. So the fact of the matter is that if we're going to apply the previous notion of when your Bankai is damaged, severely damaged in its state, the Bankai can never be the same again, then we got a problem there because Ichigo's Bankai got cut in 2. The dude just hopped into this and it's already cut in 2. And when it's cut in 2, the blade's already near Juha. Just how Juha himself, when he broke the horn, he already had it in his hand. Because the events already occurred in the future and now they're gonna streamline down to the present. So it's not like it doesn't make sense, okay? It makes sense given the power of Juha. And that was why I was so conflicted when it came to live reaction. But even though it makes sense given the power of Juha, given the amount of time people have been waiting for Ichigo's new Bankai and his new powers, and given the fact that we get to see his Bankai, ultimately for the moment, and that's all we're getting because Juha is that powerful. He decimated Ichigo in an instant. Not even. He decimated Ichigo in the future. Wow, it's so disappointing. That's the problem. Ultimately speaking, it is massively disappointment. You have to wait more time now to see what he can do. We've already waited how many 100+ chapters? Come on, dude. Come on, Coops. You're killing me, man. You're fucking killing me, man. You're breaking my balls with steel boots. Fuck. I can see how if you didn't really care about Ichigo's Bankai, this chapter can be seen as like 9 masterful, where Juha is just that glorious. Kubo, he pulled off a holy shit moment, and it was a holy shit moment. But from the opposite end, where I was, it's a holy shit moment for the complete reverse reason. Like, holy shit, I cannot believe Kubo fucked us over because we waited all this time to see a Bankai. More time wasted, more time waiting, congratulations. Whereas if you don't care about Ichigo, honestly, it's like, holy shit, fucking Yuha, this broken bastard, goddamn. Ichigo's gonna go Bankai. Nope, snuffed. Just not stop it, dude. He teabagged him. Might as well. Because you can see it in like those two ways, those two clear, distinct ways, I can't really give it a rating. Like, like I'm gonna pull out that kind of card. Where, yeah, I did say that I was gonna have a rating, but my rating, honestly, is I don't know. Because I can be biased. I can be completely biased and say, you know what, I'm on this camp. I want to see his Bankai in full effect. We get to see none of his Bankai. Therefore, fuck Kubo, massive troll chapter, this was a horrible chapter, fairy tale level, and so on and so forth. I could really go that route. However, I gotta be fair here, and I can see it from the other side too. And the other side's kind of like, dude, this is your prima villain. Your prima villain is hyped up to be a nigh god, and he's doing the godly shit. No, though granted, the whole thing about how, oh, by the way, even though I can see every possible future outcome, that's not the true power of my Bankai. It's like a final form. I mean, dude, seriously, the final form of Yuha is I can actually alter the future. What? Like, that is massively suspicious, Kubo. Like, oh no, the true power is to see the grains of sand. The true power is to see every possible future outcome. No, wait, actually, the true power is to alter the future. Nigga, what? But again, he's a nigh god, so I'm not, like, it's shocking, but I'm not, like, overly shocked when it comes to just his raw power, and when it comes to his abilities. So, from that end, this chapter is fucking masterful. Like, Kubo pulled a good damn move. So from that end, the chapter is like an amazing, a great plus, a yo chapter. So from a reviewer standpoint, I find myself stuck in between like two like really thick steel plates. It honestly comes down to from which perspective did you have expectations for Ichigo's Bankai? Is it more so you look at the time it took to reach this point and knowing that Kubo is still gonna have even more time, even though he showed us the Bankai, we're gonna have even more time to see what it can do. What the fuck? But at the same time, if you don't really care at all about Ichigo, and it's more so about, in this case, the villain Yuha, who, by the way, I still do enjoy. That's not changed at all. But when you see from that perspective, and then you see what he can do even to Ichigo's Bankai in an instant, kind of like, and then you're shocking the whole fandom who expected a Bankai and who expected to see some powers from the Bankai. So let me just stop rambling, honestly, because you guys get where I'm coming from here. From a reviewer standpoint, I'm in a rut, so I'm just gonna back out completely. I'm gonna dip, and I will leave the rating ultimately to you. Is it a bad chapter? Is it a good chapter? Is it shit or is it masterful? That will ultimately be decided by you guys and gals. Normally I'll tell you straight out, like, this was fucking great, this was shitty, but this time around, I honestly don't know. You know what? I could cheese it and say the chapter ultimately is an okay chapter. I really could. I could take the straight middle ground, say it's an okay chapter, and be done with it. Straight up, even that I don't think is fair when it comes to the review, because clearly this chapter is far from okay, but depends how far, in which direction. Is it far in the good side or far in the bad side? So that's it. I'm done. King Lightning, rate the video, comment, and subscribe as always. Peace! Have a nice goddamn day. I will see you for the next chapter where hopefully there won't be, you know, too much polarization. But at the same time, given how it's going to probably continue on to the next chapter, that may happen as well. Oh, shit. All right. Have a nice goddamn day.